You hear about that firefighter that saved 3 kids? Oh my God. She sounds incredible. That's great. Good for her.
Ugh, there's so much cringe to unpack here. Alright guys, now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my segment where I take on the craziest and cringiest ideas from the Clock app. Don't forget to hit that like button, comment with your thoughts, and let me know what you think of this as we go along, and maybe even consider subscribing. Now let's check this out, because this might just be the cringiest male feminist TikTok of all time.
Anyway, that's my favorite form of micro-feminism. What's yours?
All right, I don't know how much space I'm allowed to occupy in this conversation, but I want to contribute. Playdates. I make it a point to schedule as much playdate time as possible. A lot of times I'm dealing with moms of other children. But I force the dads to be involved. I'll text them first. I'll email them first. If I run into them, I say, hey, here's my number. Let's set something up for our kids. You know, it's kind of a running joke a little bit, but at least like it's being noticed. So that's good. And then also anytime you're being told a story or someone recounts an article or something that happened and doesn't identify a gender of the main character of that story, like, oh, hey, did you see that drunk driver crash into the hospital? Oh my God. What was his name? Did you hear about that firefighter that saved 3 kids? Oh my God. She sounds incredible. That's great. Good for her.
Ugh, there's so much cringe to unpack here. So first, we have to talk about the fact that he put a trigger warning on the video that a male was about to speak. Are you serious, bro? How much space am I allowed to occupy in this conversation? It's your TikTok page. You can talk about whatever you want, and if people don't want to listen, they'll just keep swiping. You don't have to apologize for your gender or sex or act like it makes you less capable or less able to participate in a conversation or debate. And look, I think the thing about the playdates is relatively harmless. I mean, dads should be involved in their kids' lives, and while what you're doing might be making things a little more inefficient, I don't really see anything wrong with it. But I have to say, the thing about the purposeful gendering of a firefighter as female is incredibly dumb because A, that kind of thing really doesn't accomplish anything, but B, you're just like basically trampling on factual reality in pursuit of micro-feminism. It's just a fact that 95% of firefighters are men. So if you're just being logical and you don't know the gender of a firefighter, it would make sense to assume it's a dude. Now, maybe in situations where it's 50-50 in a field, you shouldn't just assume it's a man and use he. Although again, don't really think it's that big a deal, but maybe in those cases he might have a point. When you're actually stretching yourself so hard to virtue signal what a good male feminist you are, that you are purposefully making yourself almost certainly inaccurate in your speech, you've gone too far, babe. And I say this all as somebody who I guess kind of is a male feminist. I am male and I am a feminist, at least not in the woke sense, right? I think modern feminism has gone kind of crazy, but in the sense that I don't really believe in most gender roles or sex stereotypes, and I think women should absolutely be equal under the law and given the same opportunities as men. Yet even I find this incredibly cringe. But apparently a lot of people liked it because he posted a part 2.
Anyway, that's my favorite form of micro-feminism. What's yours?
So with your permission, I would like a little bit more space in the conversation. I've got coffee, I've got notes, and let's get into it. Here are some of my favorite micro-feminisms from the comment queens on my last video. My husband values me out loud, in front of the kids, in front of other people, in public in general. Mom is better at driving. Mom is better at reading. Mom is better at anything. Person hours over man hours. You can do that for any of the mankind, humankind, person kind. There's a bunch of variations of that.
Okay, so again, the apologizing for your sex, like warning, man about to speak. That's just so pathetic. Does this man literally think he's not allowed to speak unless women give him permission? And I think the point about valuing your wife and pointing out when she's better at things, I think that's great. But and sure, do that for women when it's true, but also do it for men. I don't know. I don't see that as super feminist thing. I just kind of see that as being a good husband or a good wife. You should be gassing up your partner and highlighting their strengths and the ways in which they sometimes lead and you sometimes lead. Like, that's all well and good to me. I totally support that. But the stuff about saying person kind and human hours or whatever instead of mankind or man hours or whatever is so dumb. Mankind was never considered a gendered word. It's always referred to males and females, all of humanity. And literally 0 real people have had their lives adversely affected because of that word's phrasing. And getting people to say person kind instead is not just clunky and annoying, but it accomplishes literally 0 to help or advance women or feminism in any way. It shouldn't be called micro-feminism. It should be called microscopic virtue signaling. But of course, there's more.
So that when meeting a new couple, ask mom or the woman what they do for a living first, before you ask the man. Dadder Day, I love this. That's just on a Saturday morning, a bunch of dads and their kids getting together and having play dates. I love that. Texting dad only, or addressing dad first in a group text, or even just including them in a group text. All good. Putting a woman's name before a man's name when addressing what would assumedly be a married couple, like John and Jane Smith. This goes out to Jane and John Smith. Having dad as the emergency contact, even if they're the irresponsible one that'll just be like, call the mom. At least you're forcing that man to admit to other people, I'm incapable of dealing with the situation. I need the woman's help. These are honestly innocuous to us now because we've just created the default where this is how we interact with people. So
okay, so some of these seem innocuous, like Dadder Day, whatever. That sounds cool, but I also don't really get what it has to do with feminism. And then if people want to address the dad first in a group chat, or if they want to write Jane and John Adams instead of John and Jane Adams, knock yourself out. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's perfectly fine to do. But the emergency contact one kind of threw me for a loop, because it's kind of in the name. Emergency contact, that this is kind of a serious situation where you really need to get in touch with somebody. So you should be putting whatever parent is going to be the most responsible, most likely to pick up the phone, most likely to be able to assist you in that situation, not purposefully putting a less reliable person as someone's emergency contact in pursuit of micro-feminist virtue signaling. That is not just delulu, but dangerous. Anyway, he goes on for several more minutes, but I really don't want to put you guys through more of that. What do you think of this whole micro-feminism trend? Do you actually think there's a point to some of it, or is it all just vapid virtue signaling? Look, I'm somebody who supports traditional feminism, at least in the sense of equality between the sexes, but I still find a lot of this woke TikTok stuff dumb, pointless, and cringe. Let me know what you think, though. If you disagree with me, I definitely do want to hear your take. And don't forget to hit that like button to reward me for suffering through TikTok. And maybe if you can consider subscribing and sticking around, or even turning on those bell notifications.